We expect an overwhelmed mind to make a lot of noise. We picture shouting, tears, or a dramatic breaking point. But for those who have endured too much for too long, the collapse is usually silent. It happens quietly, privately, a soft fold, as if the mind is almost apologizing for finally refusing to carry one more pound. This moment is almost always misread by the outside world. People look at a survivor navigating chronic emotional exhaustion and see someone who is remarkably calm and unflappable. They mistake a lack of reaction for inner peace. This logic model shows the mechanical reality of that calm. When a system's processing capacity is overwhelmed by a flood of data, it trips a breaker. It instantly disables secondary functions and enters low power mode to prevent a total shutdown. The human brain follows this exact protocol when a crisis lasts too long. It protects itself from emotional overheating by narrowing your bandwidth to the bare minimum. Joy feels distant and reactions feel muted because your capacity has been exceeded. The volume knob was turned down to keep the system running. This creates a startling reality. The traits society admires in survivors, the deep wisdom, the steady voice, the unnerving maturity, are often the visible markers of an overloaded nervous system. True peace is an active, safe presence in the world. What we are seeing here is numbness, a survival mechanism that suppresses the nervous system so it can continue to function in the dark. You don't need to grow up in constant, explicit danger to trigger these defenses. Unpredictability does the job just as well. When a child learns that silence can mean trouble, or that caregivers shift moods without warning, their brain prioritizes survival over everything else. This environment alters the brain's priorities. The amygdala becomes hyperactive, firing at neutral data points, scanning for threats. This constant alarm exhausts the prefrontal cortex. The Center for Calm Reasoning works overtime until it can't keep up, letting the alarm system take over. The brain makes a profound biological investment, treating these high-alert safety protocols as its new, indefinite baseline. Natural curiosity is sidelined to power a relentless background process of scanning for threats. We see the results of this investment in the old soul archetype. We praise a child's maturity, yet that wisdom was often extracted from them. They learned how to comfort adults and monitor moods long before they understood their own emotions. In adulthood, we call this intense intuition or empathy. In a clinical sense, it is hypervigilance, an involuntary reflex of a brain that was never allowed to relax. Most people walk into a room and see furniture. For a survivor, that same space is a grid of invisible variables. Their brain tracks the texture of the silence, the subtle drop in a person's tone, and the exact moment a conversation might tilt toward conflict. This makes romantic closeness feel like a high-risk variable. When your early history taught you that connection is unpredictable, the nervous system doesn't relax when someone gets close. It braces for the inevitable shift. This bracing creates distinct attachment strategies. Avoidant patterns use distance for self-preservation. Anxious patterns treat a change in a partner's rhythm as proof of approaching abandonment. And disorganized patterns crave intimacy while simultaneously flinching from it, terrified of losing themselves. These aren't personality flaws. They are defense protocols designed to ensure history doesn't repeat itself. What looks like exceptional social intelligence is actually a survival muscle that has been trained by necessity. Maintaining those relentless defenses is exhausting. Eventually, it leads to an emotional fade that almost no one notices. You are still present, but you begin to dim. Your laughter gets softer and your words shorter as you try to take up as little space as possible. Beneath that fade is a form of invisible mourning. It is a specific grief carried by those who had to grow up too fast. They grieve the version of themselves they had to leave behind. The self who trusted easily, who didn't rehearse conversations, and who could move through the world without a tightening in their chest. The tragedy of premature survival is that while the armor works, the person inside becomes a stranger to themselves, trapped behind protective layers they didn't choose to build. If you recognize these patterns, you are not broken. You are a survival masterpiece built under extreme pressure. Your mind developed these skills to protect you when nothing else would. Even when these patterns feel hardwired, the brain's architecture is not static. Neuroplasticity is the biological proof that the nervous system can be retrained. Survival mode is a state of being, not a life sentence. The first step in this retraining is awareness. You begin by noticing when your body is bracing without applying judgment. You notice the shallow breath or the clenched jaw, simply acknowledging that your survival brain is trying to do its job. Step 2 is somatic regulation. Because the nervous system cannot be argued into feeling safe, we must use the body to calm the brain. As this flowchart shows, manually slowing our breathing and heart rate sends a signal directly that the threat has passed. Step 3 is reparenting. This is the act of giving yourself the emotional permission you never consistently received. You are allowed to have needs, you are allowed to rest, and you are allowed to feel without having to earn it. Step 4 is building healthy connections through consistency. Your survival brain learned that relationships mean instability. Healing means moving slowly with safe people, teaching your nervous system that trust can be a gradual, steady process. That same deep perception you've always carried remains, but its role changes. Hypervigilance, once a frantic search for danger, eventually settles into a profound, grounded compassion for others. Healing is about honoring every version of you that carried the weight so the current you can finally breathe. You can retire the survival brain. You can stop simply enduring your life and finally begin to live it.